Hello. So when I talk about Jets in a feature I added called Mega Mode, and so here is a blog post I wrote about it. So the blog post is entitled Jets Mega Mode Run Rails on AWS Lambda. So you can guess what Mega Mode is. Mega Mode basically is a feature of Jets that allows you to run a Rails application on AWS Lambda via Jets. And I'll talk about how that kind of works in this video, and we'll also create actually a project from scratch and give a demo of it and everything. So first, let's talk about a little about the name Mega Mode. So the name reminds me of a couple things. It reminds me of the Mega Monolith. Sometimes, if you're lucky, the Majestic Monolith. Sometimes, if you're not so lucky, just a monolith. And then also reminds me of Power Rangers, and they have a thing called Mega Mode where all the Rangers kind of combine into one big Megazord. So that's kind of cool. And it also reminds me a little bit of Mega Man because he's a superhero that he can use different weapons, and that's what makes him Mega Man. Okay, so Mega Mode combines the Jets and Rails app together and allows you to run Rails on AWS Lambda. Okay, and here are docs for Mega Mode. Here are docs for Rails support, and here's a link to the Ruby on Jets documentation site. And they're all the same site, but they link to specific areas of the documentation to help you out. Okay, and here is a live demo. So let's actually open up the live demo and check out. So live demo here. You click on this Rails app by Mega Mode, and this is actually we're on a Rails application running on AWS Lambda right now, actually. So this is the info page and telling you a little bit of information about the database. And here's actually another link here that links to a CRUD demo. This Books. Books is basically going to be part of the Rails app here. And you could click around, you could edit, and you could do whatever here. That's the Rails app. And you can go back a little bit. This is the Jets app. And the Jets and Rails app is the same app, actually. It's just when you click on the Rails app, you're going through both this Jet stack as well as the Rails stack. I'll explain a little bit more of this in this video here, but I just wanted to front load and show you this demo at the very beginning here. And here is the Jets app right here. So the Jets app is just like another CRUD demo there. Okay, so let's go back to here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a brand new Jets app from scratch. And then we're going to import a Rails application into that Jets app. So we'll basically do that, and we'll essentially recreate that live demo. So here are the commands to do that. The commands are all here, but I figure it'd be good to run through this in a video and kind of show you how it's done. So let's go ahead and grab these commands, and I'll explain these commands as we go along here. So Jets new demo. So what does Jets new demo do? What that does is it just generates a new skeleton starter project. So it generates a bunch of files and does a bundle install, and right now it's doing some Webpacker install stuff. So it just basically sets everything up for you. So you have a project. And then we're going to cd into demo, which I've already pasted that command. So we're going to cd right into there. And then we're going to generate a scaffold here. So this is basic scaffolding. We're going to generate a post model with one column in named title. And then let's see where we're at right now. Okay, so generate scaffold. So that's done already. And we're already in cd demo. Okay, and then here's some instructions to check out like the .env development, and just in case you need to configure it. And now I'm just going to cat it out so you can see what that looks like. Here's an example. So this is one way to configure environmental variables. You can export them in your environment too, but just as a concept of .env file, so you could just add your environmental variables in here, and basically they get sourced in or they kind of get loaded into the environment. So here's an example of what the database URL kind of looks like. So we can go ahead and create that. But actually, the default database YML is actually pretty good. So as long as you have basically MySQL kind of working locally, right, like I do, you actually don't have to change it. So I'm just going to kind of move on because I don't have to actually change it. So that's cool. All right, and then after that, we can go ahead and migrate or create the database and migrate. So I'm going to do both of those right now, creating the database and migrating. So that's just db create, db migrate. That both creates the database locally and actually migrates it with the CRUD, the post table that we added via the scaffolding. Then here's the Jets run it 3 times command. So this is what it's doing, is just running a script to seed it with some data. So the script is 3 times. So we're creating 3 posts with the title 1, 2, 3. So we just have, because the database is empty, we just create it. So just we have some data, so it kind of looks a little filled out. Now we can start the server and actually do some local testing. So I'm running this in Cloud9, so I'm going to go ahead and bind it to this address. I've already taken the time ahead of this to set up a DNS record to point to this Cloud9 EC2 instance, so we're good. But the demo here actually covers this on localhost, and you can run this locally too. I'm essentially treating Cloud9 like a local server. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start that up, and here is the endpoint, I believe, 8888. So once that starts up, okay, there we go. So I should see a welcome splash page. So that's cool. So that's working. I should also see, because we could generate CRUD, post index action here with the 3 seed records that we created. So that's kind of loading up right there. So you see that CRUD's working now. So we've basically created a Jets app at the beginning here, a start app. Okay, let me let's go back to this and see where we're at. So we did the same thing here. This is just showing you some screenshots, just showing you the post index, and we did that. So now we have a Jets app. We're ready to go ahead and import a Rails app. And Jets has a handy command called import Rails that makes this a pretty simple task. You just run this command, and you can supply a path. You can provide a GitHub repo, and then it will just import it in for you, or any Git repo. So I'm going to kill this server now because that's working, and now I'm going to import the Rails app. Oops, don't forget the J. Okay, so that one command will import the Rails app for us. So that's import the Rails app, and now it's spitting out some instructions. So essentially, the import essentially just copies the project in. It does a little bit massaging the project, but not too much, very little. And then essentially you kind of have it in this rack folder. So it's in this rack folder right here. And the instructions are here. It says, okay, import it into the rack folder. Here are some next steps. It says check out config routes. So what it's saying is you have to go check out your current Jets app, and you check out the routes file there. So let me just move some of these windows around here. Okay, so here is it says check out the config routes, and it says this cache all route has been added. So here it is. This is what the import command added, and also comment out your current catch-all route. And this is actually how Mega Mode works. It works through routing. So anything that's basically not defined in your current Jets routes file, if you have this additional route here that basically routes it to this internal Jets or rack process controller action, then that's going to be processed, sent down the line to the rack application. And the rack application happens to be a Rails application in this case, and then the results get spat up the stack through Jets. So this is essentially how Mega Mode works. And I did this to keep the processes separate, keep the libraries separate, keep everything separate. When you try to share libraries between projects that are pretty different, you're just basically setting yourself up for kind of a headache and mess. So this was a design thing. These run on separate processes. These are separate basic applications, but they're kind of embedding each other. Hence the kind of the Mega Mode. Okay, all right. So that's kind of been set up. So post here is still going to run through Jets. The home page is still going to run through Jets here. This catch-all, everything else is going to run through the rack application. So the rack application has been imported. Now let's say it says, okay, also double check your database YAML is configured properly. So this file was also kind of regenerated because it has a little bit better defaults than the Rails usually. So this should work, but you do want to double check this because this can't be completely, it's not always going to work. So double check this and make sure it works. And it even says right here, CD in the rack application, and then go bundle exec rack up, just to make sure that the rack application that we've imported is working. So I'm going to, again, bind it to this host, and I'm going to test if it's working here. So that's very important. As long as you can get this working, your chances are very high that Mega Mode is going to work. Okay, because they're separate processes. So that's the beautiful thing about doing it that way. So 9292, because this is now I'm hitting the Rails app. Oh, I got run migrations. Okay, so let me run migrations. I'm gonna have to do this little trick here to run migrations. UV. Oh no, I'm just actually local right here. So Rails DB migrate. Okay, so that should, because I'm doing Rails here, not Jets. So that will create the migration that's associated with the Rails app we imported in. Now I'm going to do a rack up again. And let's see if this works now. So that should, yeah, there we go. So this is we're just running, we're only hitting the Rails application. This is normal Rails. There's nothing special here. There's, no books created there. Let's just create one book right here. Test book 1. Create book. Okay, so that's all working. Okay, but we're not going through Mega Mode yet. We're not going through Jets yet. So now that that's working, what we can do next is go back up, and the instructions should say right here, start the Jets server now. So it's going to start the Jets server. I'm going to point a couple things out here. So I'm going to start the Jets server up here. And you can see when I start the Jets server up here, it starts the Jets server, but then it also starts up the rack server. So it starts up both servers here. So because that's how Mega Mode actually works. They're two separate processes. So, and then what we can do is now test it via Mega Mode. So you change this to port 88, which is the port of Jets. So let's hit that. And books is associated with the Rails. Books is, it's associated with the Rails app. So we're going to be hitting the Rails app in this case locally. It's going to hit the Jets app, then it's going to hit the Rails app, and return it all back. So that's working. We just went through mega mode there. Now we go back here to posts. That still shows the Jets app only. So that's only going to hit the Jets app. And that's in return. That's the Jets app right there. If we hit info here, that's going to be the Rails app, because that info is only a part of the Rails project. And I even wrote a little thing here that says Rails project just so we can see the difference. And actually, it'd be actually really good to go in here and go change maybe views index, and then we just change post to Jets app here, just so we can see the difference. Okay, so let's go back to posts. So this should say Jets app, and then post. There it is. We just changed it. And then books, that should say that's the Rails project here. There it is. Okay, so we've successfully now have imported a Rails app, and that was it. It was just one line, and it's making sure, sure things kind of work locally and everything. So let's see. The blog post talks about importing in, talks about the routes we just talked about, talks about local testing, migrating, which I forgot, but we went ahead and did that. Then we start up the server, we test everything locally, and then it's saying that just go through port 888 here once you have verified that the rack server is working independently, because then you're going through mega mode there. Okay, so there's some more screenshots. Where to find logs, so that's kind of important. Let me show you where logs are. And go ahead and close this guy off, opening up another terminal here. Okay, and so on the left, I'm going to just kill it just so you can see the command. Jets server host. I'll actually move these windows a little bit. Okay, so that's the Jets server output, that's standard out. And your Rails application, it's going to be wherever your Rails application logs is going to show up wherever it's normally configured, and usually that's like a log file. In this case, log development. I'm just adding rack here because remember the Rails application is under that rack subfolder. So we can see the two logs here, and now we'll kind of hit the logs again. Let's go back here. Let's go to posts. So if we go to posts, that's only the Jets app. So we can see the logs here. That's only Jets app. See that? Okay. And then I'm just going to put a marker there, and then we get hit now info. So that's going to hit both the rack app and the Rails app. And you can see both logs actually returning some results. So that's hitting both logs there. So that's how you check the logs locally. When Jets is deployed to AWS Lambda, the machine is not available. Log files aren't really available. So Jets reconfigures the loggers. So it sends it and streams it to CloudWatch logs. So it's available for debugging there. But that's on AWS Lambda. And we'll show you that. I'll show you that in a bit later. Okay, so now we're almost ready to deploy the AWS Lambda. We just do need to create a database that's available for AWS Lambda to talk to. So you need a RDS database. So here are some instructions. I'm linking to the AWS official docs here to create a RDS database instance. And these instructions are very thorough and pretty good to follow. So follow that to go create a RDS instance. It takes a little time to read the instructions, but once you click on that RDS create database instance, it takes like 5 minutes, usually less than 5 minutes to have the RDS database ready and basically be able to grab the endpoint and then kind of roll with it. So, okay, I'm going to actually show you where you grab the endpoint on the RDS console here. So I've already created this database just for basically throwaway purposes for this demo. So I'm just going here and go test tongue. This is the database I created. And I scroll down here, and the endpoint is somewhere. Oh, here it is. Okay, and here's the endpoint right here. So that's what you're going to be looking for, because that's what you need to configure in order to deploy this in AWS Lambda. So I'm going to go ahead and go do that. I do have a file kind of already prepared, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me just kill this process. I'm copy that over to the project. Okay, so and now I'm going to cat it so you can see it. And again, I'm going to throw away this database. I go, oops, that's the development one, not the remote one. So there is a .env.development.remote file also. So there's this concept of remote.env files too. And this is all covered on the Ruby on Jets website here under .env files. So the env files, they can get merged together and then they get deployed kind of. And the remote file only gets merged upon deployment. So this is a very useful for cases where you want environmental variables such as the database URL to be completely different from your local one, but you still want the same environment. So this is what that is. So I also want to cover the database URL format here. So here's the database URL format. Here's the adapter. Here's the username. Here's the password. Here's the DNS that you can grab from the RDS console. And then here's the database. Okay. So, and then I also want to cover, let's see, actually, I'm going to start this deployment, and I'm going to cover the other command that's useful, because the deployment takes a couple minutes, so I might as well kind of start this. Okay, so I think copying that is enough to kick off the deploy. So let's let that deploy go, and while that deploy is going, I'm going to go through this next command. So next command is Jets env remote. So there's kind of a special remote flag right here. And what that does is usually when you are using .env files, the .env .development.remote is not going to use those values unless you deploy. But if you use this .remote or Jets env remote option, then it's going to say merge that remote file too. So then this is a way for you to kind of test locally how to connect to using those remote settings. So that's what I'm going to do to connect to, let's see, I'm going to actually db create, db migrate. So I'm going to go ahead and db create and db migrate that database here. Okay, so it's our existing, so that's good. So that, and then I'm also going to have to migrate the rack application actually. So for that one, I'm going to kind of use a little bit of trick here. So remember what's in this file here at the top level. Oops, I need a dot here. env.development.remote. I have the credentials there, right? So if you kind of do export here, right? And then instead of, you could echo it, right? That's the code that we're running, but instead of echoing, I'm going to eval it, right? So that will give me a database URL environmental variable set right there. Okay, so now I could just go Rails DB migrate, and that's going to create the Rails migration. I guess this is I have already migrated this. Okay, so but you definitely need to do that if you don't have the remote, if it's a brand new remote database or RDS database, you have to create the database, you have to migrate both. So I'm cheating a little bit here. I'm using the same database URL or database for simplicity for both the Jets app and the Rails app. You can use separate databases if you want to, but I'm just keeping this simple. So I'm using the same database there. So that's why I'm kind of migrating kind of both there. Okay, so that deployment's done already. Let me go check and see if I missed anything in the blog post, because I probably did. So we create the RDS database there, and then we went through and we reviewed the .env files and reviewed the database URL format. We talked about Jets Remote here. Also here there's a way to validate kind of that things are kind of working. So I'm actually run this too. And this is I'm just starting up a console, but using the remote database URL setting. And now I'm gonna run now a database or active record based connections tables. And that's just a sanity check to make sure that we can actually connect the database and it's kind of working, right? Okay, so that's all good. That looks good. And I think then we're ready to deploy, which I already deployed. And then here's screenshots of us checking it. So let's actually check it now. So here's the URL right here. Another way to grab the URL is you can always run Jets URL. And that's going to spit out the API gateway URL that's associated with this Jets app once it returns there. Okay, so anyway, that's taking a little time. So I'm just going to go ahead and start playing with this endpoint here. I'm going to go back here and check this. That's interesting. There it goes. Finally, it ran it here. Okay, maybe that, anyway. Okay, so it ran it back, and here is the URL. So here's the Jets app, the homepage. This is the same homepage we're looking at locally, right? Here's the local homepage. I think my Jets server is down, so cd demo Jets server. Okay, and this is the same page we're looking at locally once that starts up. And this is now on AWS Lambda. This is running remotely, okay? And then if we hit post, that's only hit the Jets stack. So here's the Jets CRUD application here, and you could go to updates, you could do edits, you can do what you like right there. And now we're gonna hit books, which is associated with the Rails application. So there's books right there, and that's the Rails application. And I created a test record already. So test book 2 now. Let's create another one. You can see it's pretty snappy because of the pre-warming. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, the info. That info also hits the Rails application right there. So here's the Rails application via info right there. It's just in Rails project, and it says DB adapter and to tables and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so we've successfully recreated the application essentially. So that's mega mode. Like that's pretty much it. All to it. I think there's a couple more things I want to cover here in this post. Okay, explore the console. Yeah, that's pretty actually really handy. So let me show you how that's done. But let me just close some of these down. Okay, Lambda management console. Okay, So here's the Lambda functions. It was just deployed right now, 4 minutes ago, right there. And here's kind of neat thing about Mega Mode or Jets. And this is kind of, I actually introduced this as part of Mega Mode because rack applications and Rails applications, the libraries, the dependencies, the gems, they actually add up to a considerable amount of weight, about 250 megs, which is just enough where you can't fit it into AWS Lambda anymore, right? So because of that, actually, the dependencies, and this is what AWS Lambda recommends, are loaded lazily as part of the actually node shim into the environmental in the Lambda execution context. And because of that, though, the code size is actually really small. Because of that, you can actually see the code in this editor, which is pretty sweet. You can actually, this is the shim, right? But it's really cool because you can actually go in here, you can actually modify the code. So this is a post controller index. So I'm going to go ahead and modify this and just go render JSON post. So I'm going to change it so it renders kind of post. I have to configure with the test event here. It doesn't matter what I throw here because it's the index. Post the index of post doesn't actually use it doesn't use any of the parameters. So it doesn't really matter what I give it. Okay, so I basically changed the payload and I hit test, and the first request again, because it's lazy loading the gem dependencies and all that, it's gonna take a little time there, but pre-warm mitigates this. But look, I just changed it and now it's returning JSON right here. And we can also go back to not local, but we can go to remote. I'm gonna go ahead and close local so I don't get confused, and go on post, and this should be JSON, right? And look, I just made live code changes, right? And that's a lot faster than actually SSH machine digging around, and this actually changes all the Lambda functions. So that's pretty cool. You can kind of do it all here from your browser, and I think that's pretty neat, actually. Okay, let's see what else. So there's Lambda console, there's the index, there's the test payload. Here are some example payloads because for the post index action, there's actually it doesn't really matter what you give to it. But other actions, it does matter. The Lambda functions, they expect, because they're controllers, they expect a payload that's coming from API gateway. And API gateway actually has a certain format. You don't need the entire full format. So this is kind of giving you examples of the minimal API gateway payload that needs to be sent to Lambda function in order for it to work. So let's just do a couple more. But actually a really good way to grab the payload is just to do a puts a JSON dump, and then you can see the payload from API gateway is in totality, and then you can grab that, massage it, and do whatever you need with it. So that's a very kind of good trick there. So let's actually hit another one. So I'm going to go to another function here. Go functions, post new, and then try to configure this payload here. Test payload, throw that. So that should create the payload, and then this should return results. So see, so you need, and then that says new post right here. So that's how you would test in Jet post new. But how do you kind of go through Mega Mode? Okay, so Mega Mode, that's a slightly different payload, but and it's path. Path, that's the key. So we're gonna just hit info here real quick. Let's go back here to functions. We'll go to rack process. We'll go to tests again. Here's the payload. There's the test play, path info. So now we're gonna hit the info action. So let's hit test again. And you can see right here, here's the body, and here's the title demo, and here's some information. This file is located at appviewsdemoindex.html.erb. Here's the DB adapter, here's the DB version, here's some tables, and here's the link to the CRUD demo app here. So that's actually returning, I'll just show you again, that's returning this, right? Okay, so that's very, very handy in case you actually need to debug live. I found that very, very useful. So I was pretty happy about that. Okay, CloudWatch logs. So, okay, so CloudWatch logs. I mentioned that we could see logs locally, but on once you deploy this, logs, you're not going to have access to the server. So you have to have the logs redirected to CloudWatch logs. Let me show you where the logs are. So you can go to CloudWatch logs, and you click on logs here. And then you see all the logs are right here. So let's kind of go on index, and then let's scope this. Let's search all log groups and scope it to 5 minutes. Hopefully that's enough. Okay, there it is. Here's all the logs that was hitting post the post index action right here. So it kind of shows you right here with completed status. Here's kind of pointing out some useful things. Here's the start, here's the end, and here's the report. And here's kind of the event, the parameters completed, time and processing by the controller index. Okay, another kind of useful log is actually the Mega Mode one. So Mega Mode runs all through actually one endpoint. So there's some pros and cons with Mega Mode there because it's only run through endpoint. You can only pre-warm that one endpoint. You don't have as much fine-grained control over pre-warming different parts of your application because it's running through that endpoint. If you're running just a Jets app, then you can configure this to your liking, whichever one you want to warm up more, like a Poplar control of action or something. Okay, but let's go look at this, and then let's search log groups again. Let's go up to 5 minutes, and we can see some logs here. But I want to point out something interesting here. There's actually a couple requests coming here, but let's just look at this one. Start, and then report end here, okay? There is Rails here, and there is Jets logs here. So what Jets does is it actually streams both logs in the same log file stream here, but it prepends one the logs coming from Rails with Rails, so you could differentiate the loggers coming from Rails versus the logs coming from Jets. So that's pretty neat. So you can all debug right then and there. It's pretty cool. Okay, and live demo. Okay, cool. So this is the live demo again. I showed you, I front loaded this, but it's the same live demo, and we essentially recreated the entire live demo there from scratch. So that's cool. So that's it. That's what Jets and Mega Mode and Rails support is all about. I had a lot of fun actually building it, and so I actually hope you find it useful. I also hope you found this video helpful, and if you like videos kind of like this, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, encourage more content like this, and if you want to watch more videos like this, subscribe to this channel. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks.